In tales and folklore, you'd never believe ghosts were kind, could cook great meals, be super seductive, or generous. I know you're mostly with the mindset that every ghost is probably out to get your brain or your soul, and that is what the main character Yushi Inaba initially thought. The story begins with sparring between newly admitted high school students, Inaba and Hase, as a sacred key in their friendship while they keep up with each other's lives. Inaba speaks about his aspiration to graduate from Johto Business School and become a successful businessman, but is mostly excited that he gets the choice to live far away from his hostile relative's house. Sadly, his wish soon burns down in flames after an unfortunate incident in Johto's business dorm. After a futile search for an apartment due to his limited fund, one evening, while Inaba sits outside, he is directed into Maida reality, where he gets an affordable apartment, finding the room beyond his imagination. In the first minute of Inaba's arrival, he is accompanied by Ishiki, an author of a famous book, and Akine, his new apartment mates. On some apartment mate bonding time, Inaba tells Akine about the unfortunate incident with his parents' death, how he always felt like a burden to his uncle's family and their daughter, Eriko, who visibly expressed her dislike for him, which was the reason why he pushed for his apartment. When it's time for dinner, Inaba is called down, expecting to see the other members of the dorm, but is left perplexed at the worrisome figures he sees at the cafeteria. Akine waves goodbye before going for her night shift at the hospital, leaving Inaba to wander through the halls of the mysterious house. Ishiki arrives, inviting him to have a dip in the hot bath, and seconds before seeking Ishiki's opinion on the house, a sudden hideous form appears in the tub, whom Ishiki identifies as the owner of the house. Inaba goes to bed tired, considering he might have seen things earlier, and awakens to talking birds by his window, frightening him. Just then, Akine arrives with a smiling face, but unknown to her, another frightening figure lurks behind her. Inaba warns her about the strange man, urging her to run, but instead, Akine stays calm and unleashes a spell that destroys the man. There and then, Akine reveals to him that she's an exorcist who just exorcised an evil spirit. After this encounter, Inaba figures that his life is about to get a lot more interesting, now living in a ghost house he never thought was real. Inaba attempts to adjust to his new neighbors for the next 6 months while they have breakfast, when Akine reveals to him that a special barrier that stabilizes the spirits exists around the house. Hence, he can touch, see, and even eat the food prepared by the ghost chef, Ruriko. Inaba goes ahead with his first day at school, arriving home to have his first encounter with Hanako, the invisible ghost who welcomes every resident passing the front door. Not quite long, Inaba also meets the other humans in the yokai apartment. Akira, a painter who had been living in the yokai house for 10 years, and his dog, Cigar. Antiquary, somewhat a salesman who specializes in trading mystic items, and his little helpers, automatas. Mariko, a seductive ghost, and Ryu, the psychic who is honored by the ghosts. While Inaba accompanies Akine to the bus station, she reveals she is also a psychic like Ryu and works in Tsukinoki Hospital, where other ghosts and humans co-live. That evening after school, Inaba gets a gut feeling and turns back to see Tashiro, one of his classmates, walking away. He goes after her, trying to warn her, but unfortunately, a motorcycle hits Tashiro before he makes it. When Inaba holds onto Tashiro's hand, a grim sensation is transferred to his body, and Akine arrives just in time to save him, assuring him he successfully stopped her bleeding and that Tashiro will be fine. Akine explains that the action he performed was psychic healing, literally sucking the pain from Tashiro and releasing it in the form of energy. Akine is perplexed at his new powers and if his world will be different henceforth, but Akino assures him that no matter what happens, everyone in the yokai house remains together like one family and as friends. It's that time of the month where Inaba writes to Hayes about the recent events in his life, including his new job, school, and friends, but excluding the part where he lives with actual ghosts. During a work break, Takanaka, one of Inaba's classmates, approaches him and asks if he could stop by sometime to see the pretty girls in his apartment, but Inaba rejects his advances with the excuse that he's too busy. Knowing too well he can't bring Takanaka into the yokai house, Inaba gets introduced to Akane, Kuri and Shuri's ghost mom, a spirit beast from an Ugami shrine. However, Akane's arrival signaled that she was coming. The tale is told about Kuri's human mom hated him because his father abandoned her while pregnant with him. Kuri grew up in trauma, hence his inability to speak or express himself, and only found comfort in the company of Shiro, a dog he met. One day, when Kuri's mom went over the edge, she murdered Kuri, and Shuri, in return, scratched her throat, killing her, leaving the neighbors to do justice by killing the Shuri. In the afterlife, it is revealed that Kuri's mom still despised him, and Shuri takes him to the Ogami shrine to solicit help for the boy, when Akane, who felt compassion after losing her child, came forth as their protector. Inaba decides to stay up late and help fight off Kuri's mom's spirit, but turns out their type of fighting was a celebratory kind, where they have fun in front of Kuri's mom, who can't cross the barrier of the yokai house. Akane sends the killing strike at the evil spirit, making it wither, and later that night, Inaba weeps in agony, missing his mother more than ever. With the summer breaks coming to an end, Inaba's 6 months at the yokai house are nearly over, with some regret in his heart. Suddenly, there's a loud disturbance at the entrance of the yokai apartment, revealed to be Takanaka and his group of friends who were clearly up to no good. Inaba warns them to leave, saying they were not supposed to be here. However, Takanaka refuses to leave without seeing the beautiful housemate he talked about, and it all ends in a fight between Inaba and the boys. In the end, the yokai housemates intervene in the fight, giving Takanaka and his friends a wholesome beating, then set Inaba's farewell party later. Every housemate happily attends, including Ryu, who is mostly out of town. Inaba receives farewell gifts from a few of them, and soon, he moves out of the yokai apartment into the new student dorm with Ishii and Kaga, who are year 1 and 2 students. Inaba has to adjust to living in his new dorm with a snub for a roommate, and food that wasn't half as good as Ruriko's. While he stayed in the yokai house, he was told Ruriko's story, of how she was killed by a customer who stalked her from her previous job. The man cut her in pieces and scattered her body into different places, which weren't found, and the only surviving body part she had was her hands and a wish of becoming a worldwide chef. Inaba describes Ruriko's cooking as one laced with love, which was why her cooking was so delicious, and is disgusted that the feeling in his new dorm doesn't match, describing it as suffocating, just like his uncle's house. One day, Inaba sees Takanaka being arrested for doing business with drug dealers, and wonders if he was ever a good friend to Takanaka. Inaba spends the rest of the school session wondering if the yokai house was a dream, when he finds himself losing his memories of the place after being distant and handling the suffocating atmosphere his decision to change dorms gave him. One day, he runs into Sato, a ladies' man, business tycoon, and resident of the yokai house, and an ancient ghost who lives among humans. Sato's greatest wish was to be born as a human, but unfortunately, we can't always have what we want. However, he believes that he will soon gain humanity, have a wife, a kid, and eventually grow old. Inaba breaks down in tears, talking about the difficulty he had to experience with people lately, and Sato offers him comfort that he can change these people. Hayes' relationship with Inaba grew distant, leaving his father to set up a friendly meeting between the boys, where they catch up with each other's lives, and both of them go home feeling fulfilled like it was some sort of therapy. One day, at his dorm, he gets an unexpected visit from Eriko, who dropped by to have a deep conversation with him, saying she knew he was unhappy with them, but from his notes, wondered if he got so used to living without them, and apologizes for any inconvenience he felt while living with their family. In the end, Inaba feels lighter after her confession, wanting to be a better version of himself as a human. He chooses to return to the place he recognizes as home, and the yokai housemates are very happy to receive him. Just when Inaba is settling back into the yokai house, Furuhonya, an adventurer and another resident who has been absent for a year, arrives. Among his findings, Inaba gets a sensation from a magical book of cards that has its powers sealed. Hence, Akine is unable to access it nor read through it, so she opts to keep it safe before Furuhonya is ready to sell it. That night, while Inaba falls asleep, he is visited by the magic book that speaks through a bird called Fool, and also refers to him as Master. Fool reveals that the book's name is called Petit Herozoikon, a mini version of a great magical book containing 22 monsters that can be summoned at its master's will. After unlocking the seal, Inaba finds the summoned monsters at the lowest peak of unmotivated and abandons the book to continue his sleep. The next day, when Inaba meets up with Hayes, Hayes makes trouble with some gang boys who go after them when Hayes proves insolent. While they are surrounded, Fool reveals himself before his master, and a shocked Hayes offering to help with their situation. With Hayes' knowledge of the magic of the elements, he directs Inaba to summon the water and thunder spirits, dealing shock to the gang boys. Hayes walks Inaba home. Arriving at the apartment, Inaba is finally ready to open up to his friend about his accommodation with the ghost, but Hayes declines to enter, saying he would next time. Inaba reveals to his apartment mates that the petite Heirozoikon is now in his possession as its new master, and after seeing a weak display of its power, Akine offers to train Inaba because his weak summoned spirits are a representation of his spiritual power. After a series of rigorous morning and evening training with Akine, Inaba's spiritual energy has developed nicely, yet one issue that bothers him is how to introduce haste to the yokai house. One evening, after mantra recitations, Inaba receives a phone call from Haste, who urges a visit to his apartment. Despite Inaba's struggle to tell Haste the truth, he does it however, and is relieved to see Haste's gratitude to the people and ghosts that have made a home for his friend, also bringing gifts for everyone. Inaba gives Haste a tour of the house to the famous Ruriko kitchen, the underground hot tub, and the beautiful nighttime garden. While celebrations ensue, Furuhonya arrives late to the party just before the last drop of wine gets exhausted. He whines consistently about his greedy drunken housemates, when suddenly, the suitcase he travels with shakes immensely, revealing zombie heads that came to life after absorbing energy from the ghost house. Inaba considers fighting them without Ryu or Akine, but is aware that he is still weak, and just then, Furuhonya reveals his magic book, destroying the ghost as the one they call the Bookmaster, who specializes in all magic books. Before bedtime, Inaba finds out that Haze had been scared throughout the day because of his encounter with the ghosts, and Inaba understands this because he had the same expression on his first day. That night, Little Curry spent the night with them as he had grown fond of Haze. It's the beginning of the second school year, and Tashiro is excited to be in the same class with Inaba, whom she calls her hero since when he saved her life. After lectures, Inaba sees the new English professor, Miura, staring at a group of girls at practice and gets a chilling sensation of anger flowing through him. Weeks pass with school, job, and Hase's regular visits when one day, Ryu arrives after a long period of his absence. Inaba shows Ryu his magic book and declares that he would have loved it if Ryu were his master. And just then, a furious Furuhonya appears, hitting Inaba for doubting his ability to teach him about the magical books. Later, at the men's hot tub, everyone tells stories of how they got various scars on their bodies while laughing. But Haste and Inaba don't find the traumatizing stories funny. That evening, they meet another housemate, Matajiro, who lives in the high mountains after being pursued from his home by humans, and a mini party is thrown on his behalf before returning to the mountain. During school hours, Tashiro and her friends are discussing the weird activity experienced in the drama room by students, when Fool disrupts their conversation, causing the girls to search Inaba's body, when Miura walks in and angrily tells him to stop flirting. On the roof, Fool urges Inaba to investigate the ghost rumors by fortune-telling, but the summoned trio end up squabbling, providing him with invalid information. After class, Inaba spots a calm Miura heading into the lecture hall, when he is suddenly ambushed by boys from his class who are jealous of his attraction to the girls. However, he fights them off with a single page from Petit Heirozoikon. Later, Inaba coincidentally groups with Tashiro to investigate the drama storeroom, where Tashiro reveals that Miura, the strange new teacher, is also the co-advisor of the drama club. They discover a hidden scribbling on the wall, with writings, "Use to curse women," and a window from the storeroom where women practicing can be monitored. Unknown to them, Miura lurks behind them and holds Tashiro captive. Suddenly, the scribblings from the wall peel off, possessing Miura and giving him immense strength to escape. When Inaba seeks help from his book about the scribbling, he finds out that the strange aura is no longer there, and the scribblings are clustered and strong emotions from someone that came to life in another vessel. One day, Miura's possessed side surfaces in school, and he is taken to the hospital with the medics mistaking it as a psychiatric problem. Inaba worries about performing an exorcism on Miura because of the absence of the other physics, but is scared that his skills aren't good enough. Just then, Inaba receives a phone call from Tashiro, who is at the entrance of the yokai house with intel about Miura. Inaba quickly runs towards her, and she shows him a yearbook photo of Miura from his former school, where he was also a drama advisor. She reveals that Miura went through a traumatic experience after an incident with one of the girls that changed his facial look, and had not healed before getting another job at their school. Hence, the evil spirit found him as an empty vessel with just the right amount of hatred for girls. Inaba offers to escort Tashiro home because of the late hour, and just when she goes to keep bicycle, she is ambushed by Miura holding a knife. Inaba quickly handles the situation in a way that looked like a gas explosion, with Tashiro and Miura as victims. Akine returns home, stating that Miura needs immediate help before the spirit takes over his body completely, and intervenes by creating a Shikigami form of Tashiro, sucking the evil out of Miura. Miura, after regaining consciousness, rejects Inaba's comfort while he recounts the trauma he went through after being falsely accused of sexual harassment by girls who wanted revenge for his extra dedication. Inaba receives a note to meet at the art room in school the next day, and the anonymous letter is revealed to come from Miura, who escaped from the hospital once more with a knife, ready to kill Miura. Inaba figures the exorcism didn't do any good for Miura, who seemed to now be mentally unstable, and summons powers from his book with an explosion that wrecks the whole room, leaving him injured and Miura to face judgment this time around. It's a summer break, and Inaba spends time leveling up his training with Akine and assistance from Akira and Ryu, but instead of seeing positive changes, he is constantly losing weight with no appetite. One night, when the worries overwhelm him, he seeks from the other yokai housemates how they handle uncertainty and gets feedback. While he trains the next morning, he sees a spirit levitate to the sky, and it is then that Akine reveals to him that the sudden change in his attitude is because he advanced in spiritual level. That brings us to the end of the recap on Elegant Yokai Apartment Life Part 1. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and kindly comment below with your thoughts on this anime, and if you'd like to see Part 2. Bye and thanks for watching. See you next time.